restoration scams.
We guarantee our work 100%.
Are some of them duping you and trying to steal your money?
You're going to be up in about the 10 to 12 range.
We went undercover to find out. Then, could O.J. Simpson get out of prison?
I can't escape this.
Ron Goldman's sister, Kim Goldman, speaks out.
I had visions of killing the person that killed my brother.
All New Oz.
All season long, we have been taking on scammers, rigged systems, and people out to get your money. The undercover investigation you're about to see is going to make you angry because we're exposing how some companies prey on women who feel shame and embarrassment about their hair loss. Investigative correspondent Elizabeth Leamy is exposing hair restoration scams. And she's asking the question, how far would you go to reverse your hair thinning?
If you're considering hair loss restoration, the first thing to keep in mind is buyer beware. Hair restoration is a booming business. Transplants are up 27% since 2012, and high-priced clinics offering foolproof results are popping up all over. So are the horror stories. These are pictures of hair loss surgeries gone wrong. Excessive bleeding, infection, scarring, and failure to actually restore hair. Any of these serious side effects are possible when unscrupulous or unskilled doctors and technicians attempt the procedure without sufficient training. That lack of training is more common than you might think, thanks to companies that peddle 3-day training seminars and even online courses to physicians eager to cash in on this lucrative procedure. I went undercover with Anne, who suffers from thinning hair, visiting a hair restoration clinic with appalling online reviews.
This part, but I mean, up here, like my hairline is not what it used to be.
We wanted to know just what they were promising hopeful patients.
We guarantee the success of my operation.
We guarantee our work 100%.
Then why are there so many unsatisfied patients complaining?
Elizabeth Leamy is joining us. So what surprised you the most? Give her applause because it's a very difficult thing to go undercover and get these folks to talk openly. So what surprised you the most about this experience?
You know, I went in thinking that hair restoration was something rich people did, but that waiting room we visited was absolutely hopping, jammed with ordinary-looking, hardworking Americans who were somehow going to come up with the money to pay for this, hoping to restore their hair and maybe their self-esteem, too.
I've seen it firsthand. I know how painful it is to think that your hair is playing for the other team. So this is not shocking to me that it's crowded, but what is shocking you is what you found. Now, listen, everybody, there are medications that do work for hair loss. We'll talk about them later in the show. But there's also hair transplant surgery, which we're going to focus on right now. And when it's done right, the results are impeccable. They look so natural. And as a doctor, I've seen that desperation in women's eyes. They'll do anything, you'll do anything, frankly, so will men, to get the hair back that they had when they were young. So joining us now is the top hair restoration surgeon, perhaps in the country, arguably so, Dr. Matt Hübner. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So you've done 1,000 or more of these procedures. They take between 5 and 12 hours, a lot of effort.
Absolutely.
When you see these physicians conning these women, and we're about to show some footage just absolutely riveting on this.
Yeah.
How does it affect you?
It makes me angry. I feel bad for the women that have to go through this. I mean, it's such a emotionally charged thing for a woman to lose her hair. And now you have all these places that are offering cheap hair transplants and preying on that. And, you know, it's very important to do your research correctly. You're more likely to get a bad hair transplant than a good one nowadays. And unfortunately, if you don't know how to do your research, you could be prey to one of these scams.
Say that again, it's 50-50 or worse to get a good procedure?
I don't know what the exact percentage is. This is from me having patients come in that are dissatisfied with prior results elsewhere. So, you know, looking around, I feel sorry for the consumer that has no idea and doesn't know what to ask for.
So why do you call it the wild, wild west? Most of medicine is somehow regulated.
Correct. And I came from an emergency medicine background myself, so I understand that. But hair transplants is not considered to be true surgery in the way that, say, a breast augmentation would be or liposuction. And as such, it's not regulated with the same rules and regulations. There is no board certification in hair transplants. It's not recognized by the American Board of Medical Specialties, and that's the problem.
All right, so how big a deal is this? How dangerous could it be if it's not done right?
Well, certainly there are a lot of people now going to other countries, Pakistan, Turkey, India, to get cheaper hair transplants. Just last year, a 22-year-old medical student died 3 days after a hair transplant from a huge infection. This was a big center. They had 17 centers in India for this, okay? So it's very scary. Not only physically can it be dangerous, but what I see mostly in the U.S. is the emotional scarring that women especially, come in with.
So I'm looking at these pictures. I mean, these are catastrophes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether those are puncture holes where I guess they will put the hairs in the top left.
Right, so
bottom
there's different
left.
ways of doing hair transplants. In these foreign countries, a big push is something called FUE, where they take little extractions individually from the back of the head rather than a strip. So there's all kind of complications that can occur, and if someone's not trained the right way, it could be a disaster. My doctors that I train, it takes at least 9 months for them to become comfortable, and where I feel comfortable of them putting out good work and representing our practice.
And how good does it look when it's done right?
Absolutely incredible. I have hundreds of patients that can attest to how it's changed their lives, given them more confidence. Women that could never wear their hair back in a ponytail are now going out.
Here's an example. This woman there's a before and after.
That's Tanya, yeah. So this is one of our patients that is a huge advocate for us with African American hair. And it's important to know African American hair types are much different than Caucasian. In the experience of the technician's doctor, it's very important. It changed her life, and she's happy to talk about it, has her own YouTube channel and everything.
And there's a gentleman who's got a pretty good result. So
Yeah.
I have a friend actually recently had one. I could not tell, except I knew what he looked like before. So I know what good can be, which is why it's so infuriating when I see bad. So
Yes.
we wanted to know what really is going on in these hair restoration scams. So Elizabeth Leamy bravely went undercover with one woman who was losing her hair to find out. What's going to happen next will shock you. Stick around. Today, we're revealing what's really going on inside popular hair restoration clinics. Are some of them duping you and trying to steal your money? Investigative correspondent Elizabeth Leamy went undercover to find out.
Anne, whose hair is thinning in the front, has considered hair replacement, so she agreed to go undercover with us.
I would love to get my hair back the way it used to be here, but I'm not sure if hair loss surgery is safe or effective.
We did our homework reading online reviews about multiple hair restoration clinics. Then we got suited up with hidden camera gear and went for a visit to a well-known clinic. Right away, a surprise.
And the thing is, I'm not a physician.
The person who met with us initially was not a doctor, even though hair restoration is a medical procedure. That made us wonder who would be doing the actual operation. In numerous reviews of multiple clinics, patients report crucial parts of hair restoration procedures being done by non-medical staffers instead of doctors.
And the doctors do the actual work.
You have technicians that work with the doctor. It's like heart surgery.
The
But they do,
doctors,
all
they
they
are-
do day in and day out is under the microscope separating grafts.
Wow.
You want them. Yeah.
But online, reviewers complained that some technicians are far less skilled than others, leaving patients with erratic results.
Is there a chance of side effects or risks or injuries of some sort?
Scar.
From the
She will have a scar back here, but you're never going to shave her head, are you?
I hope not.
No. No.
The representative we met with downplayed the risks.
There's no long-term side effects from this.
But some patients have said, I left bloodied, and described incredible amounts of pain during and after the surgery, plus an extreme sensation of tightness and pulling of my scalp that doesn't go away.
You're guaranteeing the success of my operation.
We guarantee our work 100%. Any grafts that do not survive or grow normally will be replaced at no charge, unless you don't have sufficient donor hair, and then it would be a refund.
Oh, so you're saying you're not actually guaranteeing my results, but if they don't, if it doesn't work.
There's 2 to 3 patients a year that come back and aren't happy.
Many reviewers say after all they went through, there was virtually no improvement in their hair, with comments like, I practiced patience, but the results never came. And 1 year later, I am bald to a point I need a wig.
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you. What's your name?
Anne.
But when Anne finally met the doctor, he declared her an excellent candidate for hair restoration.
She's a very good candidate. Look at that curl. Look what you have.
And the estimated cost for the procedure?
You're going to be up in about the 10 to 12 range.
That's $10,000 to $12,000.
That's a lot for some hair.
At that price, you have to use your head if you're thinking about restoring your hair.
Elizabeth Leamy and Ann are here. And if Elizabeth hadn't been with you, you think you would have paid $10,000 to $12,000 to have this done?
If money was no object, I would have fallen for it. Totally, because the salesman, his pitch was flawless. And he had done the operation himself. He had the procedure done himself. So he showed me his before and after pictures, and I would have been convinced. He started out the pricing at like a lower level, but then like once the doctor came and the price practically doubled.
Why? He said she was going to need two treatments.
He says I would need two.
Suddenly the price was going up.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth, you went really in depth into this investigation. When you actually saw the pitches and the proposals, what bothered you the most?
It felt like a business instead of a doctor's office. I mean, the first person we met with was called a counselor, but come on, he was a salesman. Totally. And the educational brochures, those were marketing brochures. I know what a marketing brochure looks like. And they even offered Ann a line of credit, basically a credit card, to pay for the procedure. This was a business.
They're selling you a car, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Dr. Huber, you witnessed this.
Yeah.
As an expert in the field, what did you think about that? What would you have told Ann if you were honest about this procedure?
Sure. So a couple of things. One would be nobody brings up the idea about testing. So just because you lost your hair doesn't mean that everyone's a candidate for a hair transplant. There are many medical diseases, thyroid condition, for example, hormone imbalances, which can cause hair loss. There's also conditions which can have you lose your hair, which don't respond well to a hair transplant. Inflammatory conditions that will require a biopsy before getting a transplant. And this is really lost a lot of the time when people meet with the salesperson. That's the last thing on their mind because that doesn't allow them to sell you surgery. The second thing I would tell you is technicians that the doctor works with are just as important as the doctor. They're the ones cutting your grafts up and they're the ones placing it. So there are very different types of technicians and based on experience. So you can have a technician, and by the way, there's no school for technicians. This is something that's taught on the job. So there's no school.
Don't be first.
It's scary. Again, Wild Wild West, it's true. So these are the important questions to ask. So, I've seen patients come in from other places unsatisfied, where one half of their head was great, and the other half was completely different. It was almost like two different surgeries. And what's happened is you have an experienced technician and an unexperienced technician on different sides of the head. So that's
the big story here. Doesn't have to happen to you, Ann. Thank goodness you had Elizabeth with you. But anyone at home, I want you to have the right tools so you can take control of your health. So we're laughing, not crying. And you can control your wallet more effectively as well. So Dr. Huber, reveal some tools we can all use right now.
Sure. So, the first thing I would tell you is, make sure you do your research. Very, very important. Some people just go in and say, well, this is a big company. I don't need to do the research. Make sure you research your doctor. Ask how many doctors are in the practice. A real transplant takes a doctor anywhere from 5 to 12 hours to do a surgery. So ask how many patients do you do a day? If the answer is any more than 2, run away as fast as you can. You cannot be in the room for that long. So a lot of doctors, unfortunately, have the techs doing all the work, and they're in their office on the internet, or maybe even doing a plastic surgery case and not really involved.
All right, so ask the questions. You always have to do that. Make sure an MD is doing the procedure. Otherwise, you're going to have someone else, maybe the first time ever, trying it out in your body. And then finally, if it's too cheap to be true, we should believe it.
Yeah, that's something my mom always said. If it's too good to be true, don't believe it. Yeah, so the average, for someone that's good, that's reputable, an average surgery is going to be anywhere from $5,000 to $12,000, okay? Depending on the doctor and how much work you need to have done. Just a little hairline work might be $5,000. A full head of hair, maybe $12,000. So if anyone's offering you a surgery for $1,500, a red flag should go up immediately. Sometimes people will go to these outside clinics outside of the country for low-cost hair surgeries. We don't even know if it's a real doctor doing the surgery. So your likelihood of getting a surgery that's good goes down even more. And if you go into an office and you just don't have a gut feeling that something's awry here, I just don't feel good about the doctor, I don't feel good about that's something you definitely should, a red flag should go up, you should run the other way.
So, how's this for scary? By age 50, up to half of you could experience thinning hair. Not talking about full-blown balding, but more subtle thinning, like your part gets a little wider, your scalp gets so you can sort of see it despite the hair. So today, I've got thinning hair breakthroughs and instant hair makeovers so you can say goodbye to thinning hair for good. And here with me is the latest information on the topic, dermatologist Dr. Dendi Engelman. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So before we get to the solutions, what are the tips you can give for women to figure out if they're at risk so they can start to act a little earlier?
So one of the good things that I tell my patients is look at your female relatives. If your aunt or your mother or your grandmother has thinning hair starting earlier, the likelihood is you will too. So patients always ask me, when do I start to worry about hair thinning? The second you see it is the answer. Because by the time that we notice that our hair is thinning, we've already lost 30 to 40% of our hair density. Wow. So it's really not perceptible until we've lost that much. So the reality is, as soon as you note it, it's time to do something about it.
All right, so you figured it out, you looked at your relatives, looked in the mirror, something settles off. There's an FDA-approved drug for women called minoxidil.
Right.
So teach us about it.
Okay, so that was approved in the male strength, 5% minoxidil, 2 years ago. And so we've been using it forever as dermatologists, but it's a little known fact that you need the male strength, the 5% minoxidil, in order to really help enhance hair growth. And so this is readily available, it's over the counter. You put it onto your scalp twice a day, and it's nice because it comes in a foam.
Oh, my goodness.
And so it's really good in order to enhance hair, the blood flow to the follicle. So you get increased blood flow, increased oxygen, increased nutrients. So not only does it stop hair shedding, but it increases hair growth.
If you tried the old one before a year ago, the 2% one, and it didn't work, is it worth trying it again?
Yes, for sure. And that's an excellent point because it was really marketed for women. If I'm a woman and I'm going into the drugstore, I'm going to pick up the one that was made for women. But as dermatologists, we always said, don't use that one, use the male strength. But if you don't have access to dermatologists, you would never know that the stronger, the 5% is much more effective.
And how often do you apply it?
So twice a day is what's recommended.
If you do it less, does it not work at all?
It still works. It just may not be as robust a response as what you can with twice a day.
All right, now you surprised me with another recommendation, which I never thought of before, but you think that we can actually shampoo our hair to look better, but not with any shampoo.
That's right. So it's not with any shampoo, but you can find ketoconazole, which is readily available at all of the over-the-counter drugstores. And this is a shampoo that they found originally was made for dandruff, but it's anti-inflammatory and it blocks the androgens or dihydroxytestosterone that's at the base of the follicle that contributes to hair loss. And so people over time can show that their hair is getting thicker just by using a shampoo.
That's a pretty good deal. So you buy regular dandruff shampoo with ketoconazole in it. Again, twice a day like the minoxidil?
No, just 3 to 4 times a week is all you need. And you'll see over about a 3-month period. It's not an overnight success, but really little is. We have to wait for the hair cycle to actually see that we're seeing increased hair density.
Let's go meet Rolanda. She's been waiting back there patiently for us. Okay. Now, Rolanda has been actually using minoxidil, is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
So tell me, first of all, your hair looks beautiful.
Thank you.
So whatever you're doing is working. So
Yeah.
when did you start? How often do you use the minoxidil? What, any problems, etc.?
When I first started, it was early last year, 2016, and I would put some in my fingers every night and massage on my scalp. And then after that, I would just wash my hands, and that's it. And it was really powerful because one time I got it on my face, like right here, and it started to grow hair. So I had like
your face?
5 o'clock shadow, yeah. So
just on one part of your face?
It was just here because I got my over here one time. So then after that, I made sure that didn't happen again. But I saw results within like a month. And then after like 3 months, I stopped. But then as soon as I stopped, the hair fell out. So then I started using it again.
And we're using it, I'm sorry, once a day or twice a day?
Once a day.
But should she use it twice or not?
Ideally, but a lot of females only want to use it once a day because we don't want to go through the whole grooming process every day.
And you'd massage it into your scalp?
Yeah, like right around here, that's where I had the problem. So I would
you only put it in the front area because that's where your issues were?
There, exactly.
That makes sense. They have to use as much.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't get hair on your fingers?
No, because I made sure I washed my hands, so
sure.
no werewolf.
You're an angel. Thank you for being here. We'll be right back. Nice job, baby. I am back with crime correspondent Melissa Moore. Today, could O.J. Simpson get out of prison? We're joined by someone who this question plagues more than anyone else. Kim Goldman, sister of Ron Goldman, who was brutally murdered alongside Nicole Brown Simpson. So, Kim, thank you for being here. 23 years ago, and your family has gone after him and this issue continuously since then. Do you see a path of moving forward for you?
I think I take every day to take steps to move forward in my life. I mean, I'm a mom, I'm a business owner, I'm an advocate, I'm a writer. So it's important for me to take steps so that I can achieve some relative level of success and harmony in my life. So yes, of course, but I can't escape this.
Share with us a little bit of your personal thoughts on Ron, your brother. What was he like?
My brother was exactly who he was in the last few minutes of his life. He stayed to help a friend. He risked his own life to protect another human being. I've often said I wish my brother would have been more selfish in his last seconds. He ran into the fray, and I love that about him, but breaks my heart. But I think his act of heroism is the most telling part of who he is.
It changed your life, obviously. You went from being a college student, I understand, interested in psychology, to the sister of Ron Goldman. It completely diverted who you were. You became a center of a circus. A lot of attention focused on you following his death. How did it affect you?
You know, I didn't know what else to do. My job was to be at court. My job was to be with my father, to be a name for my brother, to be a face, to be a reminder. But in hindsight, I dropped a ton of weight. I didn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was suicidal. I was homicidal at one point.
How so?
I had visions of killing the person that killed my brother. Once I realized and believed that he was guilty, I definitely thought about it.
Your family's been under a lot of scrutiny. Together with the Brown family, you won a settlement for tens of millions of dollars. Folks have called that blood money. You've been criticized heartily for that and other things that you've done. But how do you respond to those folks?
You know, the system allows us to pursue the wrongful death outcome that we ended up being awarded, and I followed the system. The system disappointed me in the criminal case. The civil system was a very empowering, liberating opportunity for us to kind of get our control back. Our name was on that lawsuit, and we wanted him held responsible for what he did to Ron and Nicole. And that's what our system allows. So all I did was use the same system that anybody in this room would be afforded. Wrongful death cases have skyrocketed since our case. What I didn't know is that the system wouldn't provide for the recouping of that judgment. So
you haven't been paid the money?
No. We've received less than 1% of the judgment, and it increases with interest over the years. So now our portion of our settlement is around $40 million. So there's a big IOU out there for that.
Yeah, what's it like to have O.J. Simpson owe you $40 million?
You know, it wasn't ever about the money. It was always about having it on the record, having a jury find him responsible for what he did. Now, however, because that's the only way we can punish him and to hold him truly accountable, because if we don't pursue that judgment, we've basically given him another free pass. So unfortunately, if we don't go after the money, we've let him get off with it twice. So we pursue it because it causes him to live his life a little bit more in exile. It caused him to steal his own stuff back in Las Vegas because he didn't want the Goldmans to have it. It caused him to adjust his life and make his life a little bit less pleasurable, and I'm okay with that.
You also posted, or you tweeted actually, information about him in jail.
I tweeted his inmate number and his address where people could send him letters.
Why would you do that?
Someone asked me for it. It's public record. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I honestly still don't really find why that was so difficult, but people didn't approve of that.
Yeah, I appreciate that you're not apologetic. You're proud of what you're doing, and you're living your life.
Well, I'm a happy 45-year-old lady at this point. I've lived my whole life basically in the public eye and having to wrestle with people's opinion of our family, of the justice system, of race, of celebrity, of domestic violence. I've done a lot of really amazingly wonderful things for my family, for the victims' rights movement. I'm confident in my choices. I don't say anything I don't mean.
How does it affect you to see the media attention that's being put on this case now? You know, all these Academy Award-winning documentaries and miniseries, and a lot of folks who didn't know much about this case are being reintroduced to it. Do you watch the documentaries?
I've watched everything with the exception of the one that won the Academy Award. I haven't. It's still on my DVR. It takes a lot out of me to watch. The FX show, that ridiculous dramatic reenactment of our case, put me over the edge. That was a little too much for me. I didn't appreciate that was done. I was slightly offended by it. We weren't included in that process. We weren't spoken to about it, and I don't understand the purpose of that because I think it left people upset again. However, I understand it. There's still such a curiosity about this case 20-something years later. People are studying it, and I've learned to live with it.
Today, will O.J. Simpson get out of prison? Now, I mentioned it earlier, there was a gasp from the audience, but it is possible. I'm back with crime correspondent Melissa Moore and Kim Goldman. Kim is the sister of victim Ron Goldman. So, Melissa, you've spoken to the prison. You know more about this than just about anybody. How is O.J.'s life in prison right now?
Well, it's pretty routine and mundane. He's treated like every other inmate in there. He has a job. He cleans the gym equipment in the facility. He mops. He wakes up like everybody else at 6:30 in the morning. He has access to a TV, and so I was curious if he was able to see any of the documentaries, which I'm told probably not, as well as the other inmates, because it is a safety risk to the other inmates. I had heard that he keeps a picture of himself with Nicole in his prison cell, and but the prison wouldn't confirm or deny it, so I don't know for sure, but I think that says a lot right there.
And what is the latest on his getting a parole? This is sort of shocking to me. How likely is it that O.J. will leave prison this year?
I think it's really possible. He's 70 He's 70 now. A lot of inmates age out of the prison system. Also, he did serve his minimum 9-year sentence, and so it's very possible that he can get out just with his good behavior and all of that involved.
What do you mean they age out of the prison system?
Well, here in California and in Nevada and multiple states, that after the age of 60, even violent offenders can be released back into society. It happens.
The thought is they're less risky, I guess, and you need room anyway.
It also costs too much money for the jail system to monitor them for their safety and their health.
What is your biggest fear about him being released from prison?
I don't know that fear is the right word. I think anxiety, just because I've lived my life once with him outside of prison, and I know that having his ability to gain access to the television as often as he did, because he was always doing some cockamamie thing, he draws still so much attention that I think I'm preparing myself for that mad dash of media. I mean, I know everyone's going to be covering it, so I think I'm just anticipating that anxiety.
I'm told you don't like the phrase "move on."
Yeah.
So, moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Move on doesn't mean anything. I mean, I'm moving. What am I moving on from? So.
All right. We're moving forward into the world. Yeah. There's a possibility that O.J. I'm asked differently. Is there a world you see without O.J. in it?
When he dies, I assume.